Episode 20 of AdTalk by AdClass. Welcome. What's up, everybody? Today we got a fun one. We're here with Caleb, co-founder of AdClass. Let's go. What's up, Caleb? We're here with Matthew. Matthew, all things content here at AdClass, and we are pumped because it's an election year, which, you know, by all intents and purposes kind of sucks, honestly. I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't want to do this again. But there's some pretty important stuff to talk about in the world of advertising as it pertains to election years. So we're going to be digging into it today. We've been advertising long enough that we've been through a couple of these cycles, a couple of these crazy time periods, all the way back to 2016, 2020, now 2024, and all the midterms in between. And let me tell you, if this is your first election cycle in paid advertising, if you're running an offer, if you have a business, if you're relying on paid, buckle up, baby, because man, these platforms go crazy on years like this. So we're going to be digging into it today and pumped to get started with you guys.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. I think that's the first time anyone has ever said it's an election year. We're excited. So this is a good to start.
I'm only excited to talk about it, not to live it.
Not to go through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, dude, it's like, I feel like the context here is somewhat relevant, right? And why even does this matter in the scope of paid advertising? But like, Caleb, you can attest. We've been through a couple of these together. Stuff just kind of goes crazy on paid ads, especially like what we really notice is on meta ads. Stuff just kind of goes crazy. So like you'll see every election year, meta ads, Facebook ads of the past, accounts start getting restricted, right? Ads start getting rejected at higher levels, and just volatility across the board starts happening because there's just this like increased level of security happening that Meta is just like, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's just restrict anything that we think might be doing something that's not like advertising Coca-Cola. So what have you seen, Caleb, firsthand, like on prior election years? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. I think it's almost always a rejection issue. We all know that Meta has its army of bots, right? Or the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, that kind of scans all of the content. And I think what we find is that stuff that has been running, right? So ads that have been winning, been totally fine in accounts for months on end, all of a sudden just get rejected out of nowhere, right? You get an email or you get a Facebook notification and it's like, this ad's rejected. And you're like, that ad's been running for like 6 months. Why is it rejected right now? That's how you know that it's election year, when that stuff starts happening, because I think that they just update their stuff to be a little bit stricter, a little bit tighter. And yeah, I mean, like we've seen whole accounts get shut down literally in this year. So I think the important thing to be thinking about in this season is, how do I diversify? How do I make sure that my eggs are not all in the one basket, right? So if the basket tips over, you want to make sure that you're playing it safe, right? So making sure that you've got stuff set up on Google, getting on TikTok, considering potentially LinkedIn and these other platforms, right? Because Meta, like you said in particular, is kind of known for being the one that will do this. So if all of your spend is on Meta and you're moving into the election year, just be prepared. Be prepared for it to potentially not be spending anymore. Okay. Don't say that to scare you. I just say that to prepare you, because it's highly likely. So yeah.
And you know what? It's funny because I think this is actually part of maybe a deeper conversation, which is there are a lot of businesses in the online world that are so heavily reliant on one paid acquisition platform that if that thing experiences any bit of volatility, or if it gets shut down, or if, God forbid, it just, goes away, their business crumbles. That's not a good business model. Okay. Like, nope. Let me just say, if you're fully reliant on one ad platform for your business, you need to start thinking about making some tweaks. And so this conversation is a little bit broader than just, hey, it's an election year. Stuff happens on election years. Meta goes crazy. It does. Your game plan should be, how do I make sure one platform going crazy doesn't wipe out my entire business?
Yeah. Do not be a one-trick pony. Do not be a one-trick pony. I mean, think about it from an investment perspective, right? If you're investing into stocks, you don't get into the stock market and say, cool, I'm putting 100% of my money on this one business, this one stock. Almost like literally no investor does that, right? Same thing with your business. You can't just be like, I'm putting all of my money my entire marketing budget is going to go on this one channel, you're setting yourself up for failure. And this is the type of year where it can really bite you in the butt. So yeah, don't do it. Don't be a one.
So let's talk about Meta specifically. Like, I think the common thought is like, if stuff gets disabled or rejected on Meta, you must be doing something wrong, right? And so just for those out there that think that way, I totally get it. But what's interesting is the ebbs and flows of policy in Meta, and like even how that pertains to the calendar year that we're in, and the election cycle, all of this stuff. It's actually not always policy issues that you're breaking, but rather it's they're raising the threshold of what they're going to reject or not reject. And now you're below that threshold. So if you had just like a 0 to 10 threshold, let's just say that on normal years, Meta is restricting everything 2 or below, right? Like all the lowest quality ads, the spam, the get rich quick, the lose a million pounds ads, like those are always going to get rejected, right? They're below that quality of 2, let's just call it. On election years, because there's so much at stake, right? Think about people that can just put an ad out saying untrue things about politicians, right? Or getting people to react to viral news stories that aren't factual or whatever it is, right? Think about all of the stuff that could happen. What Facebook does is they take that 2 level and they say, hey, it's an election year. We cannot afford to get sued by letting people do the wrong things here. So we're going to raise that 2 to a 5, right? Or a 6. Now, everybody that was safe, for the last 2 or 3 years in that like 2 to 5 range is now getting stuff rejected. And it's not necessarily because they did anything different. It's just that the platform is erring on the side of caution because it's an election year. So that's kind of how that actually happens. And we've seen it already actually this year. Caleb, I don't know about you. Some accounts that I'm in, like on the day-to-day, I'm seeing ads rejected that I haven't had any rejected ads in the last 3 years on. And so, it's starting to happen already.
Yeah, it is. And I think the other big thing, aside from rejections, right, is probably CPMs would probably be the next question that we get all the time, right? It's if your ads aren't getting rejected, then the other thing that might be happening is you start to realize things are just getting more expensive, right? And again, that's because you got to think about it this way, right? When CPMs go up, it's because there's a lot more players in the marketplace that are putting their dollars into those platforms. So as it gets closer to election cycle, these big, massive parties are pumping millions of dollars of their advertising budget to basically get their message across, which in turn basically is millions of dollars of spend that's like not normally there, right? So that typically is going to be what bumps up CPMs, and so that's another thing that we'll see too. So again, it's just a time,
and it all happens right around Q4 also.
It does. So. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Whenever it's already like the highest CPMs, pretty much. Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah. And so some things to kind of look out for. Like if you feel that you're getting ads rejected at a high rate and you feel that you're still within policy, like if you're not breaking any policy guidelines, first off, read Meta's policy. Like that's the first step. If you're advertising on Meta and you haven't read the policy, recipe for disaster. Like read the policy, understand what they want and what they don't want. The easiest thing to do is read the policy and write what we call vanilla ads. Vanilla ads being things that are just blatantly pure, like they're not going to throw off any red flags at all. Like, they're clean as clean can be from a policy perspective. If you're still facing some like disapprovals and weird like rejected ads when you're doing that, then it's time to reach out to a rep. You need to proactively answer Meta's call every once in a while and get somebody on your side. Because what they're going to be able to do is actually like pre-approve ads for you or look at ads specifically that you send over to them and help you understand why is it getting rejected? Should it be rejected? Is there anything we can do about it proactively to make sure that doesn't happen in the future? A lot of people ignore Meta reps, and I get it. I get 30 calls a week probably from them. But if you have an account that you really care about, answering that call from a Meta rep could be the thing that saves you from the policy, prison, because now you have somebody on your side that's incentivized to get you spending more money, right, on Meta. Yeah. So just something to think about.
What would you say, Dakota, like is a process that's worked for you? Because I've had hits and misses with obviously Meta support. To be honest with you, Meta support is very, to put it kindly, it's usually just straight up garbage. So
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, honestly, meta support is really tough. And I feel like, I don't know, 9 out of 10 times that I try to message them about something, I don't really get help. So I'm curious, what is the process that you feel like you've seen work in the past for this? Because I think it's going to be really relevant as people move into these disapprovals or they're having issues in the selection year. I think it's going to be something people are going to want to know how to do. So
Yeah. So now that we're like a certified Meta partner agency, this has been more helpful for us
mhm.
because anytime we have an ad rejected or restricted, we can more easily get a quick answer from a rep in there, and they see that there's some trust there, and usually that goes a little bit of a way. But the reality is, like, there are multiple teams of Meta support reps that all have different functions on the back end. So, for example, I have a call tomorrow with their conversions API team, which is totally
Mm,
separate from their policy team, which is totally separate from their, strategy team. And so you have to actually poke around enough to get to the person that can actually help you. And so
mm,
that's the first piece. Like, if you're just getting unsolicited phone calls from Meta support specialists, they're actually like at a call center and they're 1099 out and they don't actually work for Meta. But if you can get a hold of somebody that has a Meta email address and that is like actually going into the office, or knows some people there, and lives in America somewhere, right? Like, these are the people that you can actually pull some strings with a little bit. And usually they're like one level higher and they're highly incentivized to get you spending more, and they'll kind of
mhm.
deploy whatever tools are relevant to get you there. So it's hit or miss. It really is. You kind of just have to be completely persistent, reaching out enough times to the support inbox until you can get a good answer. But um, I will say what's worked recently for me. This is a little hack for you guys. If you're trying to get a hold of Meta support and you're just getting like the Q&A sections, you're not getting to a place where you can actually talk to a human. What you can do is you can go to the Meta support inbox and you can basically answer questions until you figure out an answer that gets you to a point where you can say start a conversation. And no matter how you get to that start a conversation point, you can then backtrack on the actual conversation with the need that you have. So, for example, if you say I have a rejected ad in Meta support, it's only going to take you to like the account quality place where you just appeal the ad. You're never going to get to talk to a human. But if you say I have a question on ad pacing and budgeting, it will take you to Messenger where you can actually chat with a human being. And then when
Mhm.
you're chatting with the human being, you say, hey, actually, I'm reaching out because I have ad ID restricted in this account. I want to know why. And then they'll
Yeah,
get you to the right team.
it's cool.
So
It's cool.
it's a
Yeah.
backdoor, but that's how you can get to a human being.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
One other thing that just you reminded me of when you were talking about kind of the different teams at Meta and like being in the office and the strategy team and all that. This isn't necessarily related to elections, but I think it could be really cool for anyone out there that's spending a considerable amount on ads. One of the things that we were lucky enough to do recently with one of our clients is we were approached by the Meta strategy team, and they were like, hey, so we really want to see you guys spending more on the Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, right? And this is kind of a newer initiative from Meta in the last couple of months, and they're really pushing it super hard. And we've always kind of been like, nah, like we've tried it here and there, we've seen some results, but don't really want to go ahead and put like all of our budget there. And they approached us and they said, hey, look, if you launch it in this way, we'll give you guys $16,000 worth of free ad credits. And so then our client was like, heck yeah, let's go ahead and try it out. They're going to give us $16,000 for free. So I just wanted to throw that out there too, that sometimes when Meta is reaching out, especially for some of your higher spend accounts, if it's a strategist, like take the time to meet with them. They might actually be offering you free ad credits. And quick tip, if they're asking you to implement a strategy that you're not used to, maybe you should bring up the ad credits to them and say, hey, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I might be willing to try out that strategy, but could you guys maybe give us some free ad credits? Because it seems like right now, Meta is willing to do that if you kind of follow in the patterns that they want to launch you.
And usually it's like an experimental feature also that like you wouldn't even have access to sometimes. Like Google reps are great for that. You can ask them, hey, what do you guys have that like I would get early access to? And they'll make you sign an NDA, and then you go down the path of like, oh, cool, they got this, and this. Let's try it out. So sometimes it is beneficial. It just depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think more about kind of what to expect this year with elections. I feel like it changes every year. You know what I mean? I feel like it's been getting more and more intense, and I don't know. I'm really curious. Like, how this one's going to play out. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to see the same amount of disapprovals that we saw in prior years, like what's your take, Dakota? Do you feel like the
It's
algorithm
gonna be
has maybe
worse.
learned a little bit? You think it's going to be worse? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's going to be worse because they fired a lot of their staff at Meta and Google.
Mm, mm,
So there's fewer human beings, to like actually look at what's happening, and it's more based on AI. So it's like there's a chance that if you have something shut down, or business manager, an ad account or whatever, that you never get to talk to a human about getting it back, right?
yeah.
And that's the piece that's just gut wrenching for a lot of these businesses that are reliant on Meta, because it's like they don't care about the small guys. They really don't.
They
Like
really
you'll
don't.
see, like even if you're spending $1 million a month, you're still a small fish in the pond of Meta advertising, and so you really have to like understand that, and that like they've
They
got
don't
bigger
care.
fish to fry. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't care. I remember when I was uh, like I was earlier in my career with advertising, and I remember like working on a few accounts that like I kind of stepped into, and the account like already had pre-rejections and stuff, right? So you're kind of walking into one of those like firestorms. And so anyways, I remember working on one of those accounts, and I was like chatting with the Facebook rep, and I'm like, look guys, we're spending like $30,000 a month on your platform. Okay, we are, you know what I mean? And like you feel like you've got this like I don't know, like a chip on your shoulder, or like, like
Mhm.
I have you need to listen to me kind of a thing. And then it's funny that as you like are more like as you become more in tune with the game, you start to realize like how
It's
thirty thousand
nothing.
dollars is literally nothing to them. And so it's like
But
it's
but
just
as a
funny like
business owner, you're like, this is more than I spend on anything,
yeah,
like
literally.
that should count for something, right? But
Yeah,
no, dude, like they're dealing with people who are spending 10 million a day, in
yeah,
some cases. So it's like, who are they going to prioritize support wise? Who are they going to put their best people toward? It's going to be those
hmm,
clients.
exactly,
And so
exactly.
yeah, it's
So
just a numbers game. But I think it'll be worse, dude. Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of shaky stuff happening mid to end year with Meta, and I think it's a great opportunity now to get on other ad platforms while the waters are a little calmer.
yes,
Um,
yes,
and
totally.
so let's talk more about that. Like Caleb, what if you're running only Meta and you're seeing some success, where should people be heading to kind of diversify?
Right away, getting into Google search, display, and YouTube would be the next move, in my opinion. I think if you're only running on Meta, it's an easy transition to go over to Google, especially now with YouTube offering like Reels format and stuff. You can take some of the creative that's even probably working on Instagram if you're running like Reels or story ads, running those as YouTube
From on
short ads.
shorts. Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube shorts ads is, I think, an easy transition. And then Google search, it's a totally different format, right? So you're not going to be dealing with the same sort of creative, but it's a really ridiculously easy one to get set up, especially if you're just going to start with brand and maybe like some like non-brand search. And what we mean by that is targeting things like your competitors or really like high intent keywords around your niche. Getting those campaigns set up is going to be like your lowest hanging fruit to snatch if you're looking to expand out. And then after that, I would then move into TikTok next. And that's like me saying this all most likely for the info niche. If you're ecom, I mean, I'd probably move into Google Shopping, and then I'd probably go faster on TikTok before I started with a bunch of search stuff for
Yeah.
ecom, unless you're doing branded. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a loaded answer. But I think for most people that are probably listening to this and are like the typical people that we work with, I would say getting started with Google search and YouTube is definitely the next move. So
Absolutely. I'm in
yeah.
agreement with you. And I mean, man, TikTok is kind of crushing it right now, honestly, ad
Mm,
performance wise, on a lot of different offers we're running. It's like
yeah,
TikTok ads work.
they do.
And
They
so
do.
if you're able to kind of diversify into TikTok, I feel like compliance wise, you have, a little bit of a longer leash. And I think also you are probably going to see much cheaper costs just because it's cheaper to
Yeah.
advertise there. So
Yeah.
and I used to think that TikTok people had like no attention span, and like they weren't going to watch like a longer video, or they weren't going to like convert in a funnel or whatever. But actually more recently I'm seeing like people are going through like an entire webinar funnel, booking a call,
Cool.
purchasing, from TikTok. So
Dude, that's awesome. That was gonna be my next question is like, what have you been seeing work recently? Because like from my seat and my perspective, like most of the TikTok things that I've been touching have been very much so like lead gen plays where it's all about how can I build a list as like quickly and cheaply as possible, or going direct to purchase for like something that's like, $100 or $200 or less, right? Those types of funnels I've seen crush on TikTok, but historically speaking, VSL funnels and webinar funnels have been a little bit tough. So I'm curious,
I
like,
would retest them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So a year ago, I would have said VSL funnel will not work on TikTok. I've changed my mind since then. You might have to make some tweaks, you might have to like modify a few things. Obviously, you should do that for every platform you're running. Not everything is going to be one size fits all, but I'm seeing cheaper calls, cheaper leads, and pretty good CPA on TikTok ads for VSL funnels right now and webinar
Nice.
funnels. And what I would say is the biggest feedback piece that you'll get from sales is that the leads are worse. And I think that's probably true, but they're cheaper enough. They're cheap enough or cheaper enough from other platforms that you can take a worse lead, right? You can filter out more and still get a good CPA. So like we're just kind of ramping up the application questions, ramping up the qualifiers for those people that book through TikTok and still seeing pretty good results.
Sweet. Okay. I love that, dude. I think that's such a cool topic for us to hit just for a second too, because I think in our space, right, talking about like booking sales calls and stuff, one of the big things is like, a lot of business owners are like, well, I just want to get cheaper calls, right? So then they go for the cheaper calls, and then the sales team comes back and the sales team says, these cheap calls suck. I can't close anybody, right? Like they're just terrible quality. So then it becomes, okay, well, now we need better quality people, so we're going to be willing to spend more or whatever, right? So I think the magic of what you're saying with TikTok is that because you can get cheaper calls, right? It gives you a little bit of leeway to do something like add a qualifier or an application inside of the funnel, right? To where now you're getting the cheap call, but then you're putting them through this piece to be like, hey, thanks for the call, but we really still need to kind of make sure that you're the quality that we need. And then once they come out of that qualifying step, now the chances are that person is now probably about the cost of a call on a different platform, right?
Exactly.
So now, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the magic, right? So I just kind of wanted to map that out for people who kind of are trying to figure out, hey, TikTok ads are cheaper, but like, how can I get a quality lead? Don't be afraid to add an extra step in there, friction, to kind of extract that out, because even at the end, still probably the same call cost as a different platform after all that. So yeah.
It all comes down to your cost per acquisition. Like everyone is way too focused on what's a lead cost, what's a call cost, what are my CPMs, what's a click costing me? Like when you're just getting started, especially for paid traffic, like I'm not talking about if you're spending $1 million a month, like this isn't for you, because going broad is different. But like when you're just starting, you're finding the most high intent people for your offer. It does not matter what your lead cost and call cost is, as long as your CPA, your cost per acquisition, works for your business, right? Because you could have a $500 call cost, which seems expensive, but if they close at 50%, $1,000 cost per acquisition, depending on how much you're charging, your business is doing great, right? And you didn't have to take as many sales calls to get there. So, I'm not like a big fan of like, let's get $50 calls. Like, sure, could we? We could just make it very broad and open it up. But man, your sales team is going to get pretty sick pretty quick of taking calls that are just bad, and morale is going to drop and the business is going to go down that way. So, I'm a bigger fan of like, let's just adjust the messaging, the funnel, all of the little things we can adjust through to get our CPA in check, right? Because really that's what matters more than anything.
Love it, dude. It's so good. So good. So yeah, guys, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start branching out. I think if you take one message away from, I think, what Dakota and I are talking about on this episode is, it's time to start diversifying. It's time to do it now before you find yourself in a spot where you have to, right? You'd much rather start testing out these other platforms while you've got the freedom and the vibes are good, than being in a situation where your whole account gets shut down on Meta. Now your business can't run and you're like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to actually pay my employees, right? You don't want to be trying to test out ads when you're in that headspace, right? So take the time now, get set up on Google or YouTube, get set up on TikTok. We just kind of gave you some pointers on how to do it. And yeah, be prepared for the election season, because you don't know what's coming, right? And so it's best to prepare ourselves as business owners. So
I would go so far as to say, if you're currently only running ads on one platform and it's the primary lead generator for your business, you are not running an anti-fragile business. Like one event could happen and you could lose it all. So
Right.
if you hear nothing else from me on this podcast episode here, get on multiple platforms, multiple lead sources. You have to have it because the algo could shift if you're relying only on organic, and there goes all your leads. Or the business account could get shut down if you're only on meta ads. There goes all your leads, right? You have to be prepared for that. This is a volatile industry we're in. So make sure you are diversified and anti-fragile.
Yep. Do not listen to these guys out there that are just so focused on one channel and they tell you that that's the magic bullet, right? That's the silver bullet or whatever. It's not true. Okay. It's not true. Dakota and I can tell you, we spend millions of dollars every month on ads, and there is not just a one magic channel. Okay. So just please take the advice.
But dude, I teach that channel. That's what like, that's the thing, dude. It's like anybody saying that is because they sell the training on only that. Like, that's it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's literally the only reason. If someone is saying, hey, like, check out my TikTok ads formula, this is the thing, like, this is what's going to scale your business, it's because they're selling a TikTok course. They say it about YouTube, it's because they have a YouTube course. The reality is, to have a real business, you need to diversify. So get on multiple channels, like, please, people, and especially this year. So yeah, hopefully you guys take the advice.
Dude, it's funny because it's like, if business owners in other industries only sold the thing that they do, we would really quickly, well, like if they're like, hey man, you need a new roof, like, and a new bathroom, just use the roofer for both, right? Like, it's like, no, we actually need like two separate things here, right? But advertisers are in a way where they're like, hey man, like meta ads, they can do it all for you. And it's like, maybe they can get you started, but you need a diversified approach for multiple things. Otherwise you're really just, you're not a business. You're just like a lead, like a lead source, right? You're one lead source and selling one service to one lead source. So I don't know. I feel like it's harsh, but at the same time, it's like, are we talking about a business here, or are we talking about like some fly by night online thing that found an ad platform that really worked and figured it out? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the difference between like a hobby or like a cash grab and actually running a business. You know what I mean? It's really, that's the difference. So
100%. Same could be said for a business that's relying only on referral traffic, right? Like that's going to dry up at a certain point. Like, even if you do great work, even if you have everything else built out and you don't have a place to get leads, like that is not sustainable. And it's the same thing with, one ad platform. So
Exactly right.
Awesome. Well, again, it's an election year. So strap into your chair, media buyers, your video gamer chair, and your multiple screens. Just get ready. But I think having a proactive game plan is better than having nothing at all. And so totally. Diversifying, reaching out to some reps early before you have problems, establishing some connections there, and just really approaching this thing as like, hey, what happens if everything goes down? What's my game plan? And that's what your clients are going to want to hear. That's what your companies are going to want to hear that you work inside of. That's what business owners, we should be focused on. Is like, hey, if everything falls apart tomorrow, what am I doing?
Dude, that's the question, man. That is the question I think that everyone here listening needs to ask themselves, right? This election year, if my account gets shut down or my ads totally get restricted 100%, what do I do, right? If you can put yourself in that headspace, right, you're going to want to start launching other stuff. Like, you just have to put yourself there. Take time to think about it, because you don't want to wake up one morning and realize that it's reality. So yeah, that's it.
Boom. Matthew, do you have any thoughts? Caleb and I just went on a rampage, dude.
Yeah, it was great to see you guys at riff. Obviously I wasn't in like the advertising world in 2020 and all the Cambridge Analytica stuff and the fallout from that, but I feel like there was such a huge shift, even just like in my small understanding in 2016, and then everyone was more aware of it in 2020, and now who knows what's going to happen this year. It's going to be
crazy times.
It's going to be a party.
Crazy times. But like you were saying, if you're set up for it, then you'll be ready for the waves. So
heck yeah,
that's right.
It's the wild, wild west, boys.
Gosh.
2016 was, man, that was crazy. Like the people that weren't around for like seeing all of that, definitely go read up on the Cambridge Analytica stuff. That's where like all of this started. Because I think like before, when Meta was like really the wild, wild west, of like you could run anything, 2016, that played into, why the person who got elected in the first place in 2016. And if you kind of actually dig into the data that was being played with, and like the level of ad targeting and the level of like psychographic manipulation that happened in very distinct geo-targeted regions from advertising, you would understand why Meta is a little bit cautious on election years, because it's crazy. There was a good documentary, I forget what it's called. Matthew, do you remember, on Netflix about this? Yeah, it's about Trump's sort of like whole advertising campaign. It's about the, we don't want the algorithm.
All right, now our whole podcast is going to be categorized as political. Welcome to the.
I was talking about Top Trumps, the card game. Have you guys ever?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was amazing.
Great
I had the car
game,
ones.
dude. Throwback. Top Trumps, the card game. Me and my high school buddies went insane with that card game. You could buy like Marvel version, like all these different ones. So
Lord of the
fun,
Rings.
dude. Yeah. Top Trumps.
Gosh. That documentary is called The Great Hack.
The Great Hack. There you go.
Yeah, The Great Hack.
And that's not describing the winner of the 2016 election.
Well, and specifically the marketing behind it. It's very, very, very interesting. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, this has been episode 20.
Yeah. Thanks for joining the fastest growing conservative advertising podcast.
Live from the war room.
Good Lord.
I'm just busted.
Not ready.
I'm just not ready.
All right. Feel free to follow along on our YouTube channel, and where we'll post the video version of this if you're listening in. And just excited to continue to deep dive advertising topics with you guys throughout the rest of the year.
Heck yeah. See you guys.
Peace.